Hi everyone. So few sessions back, we discussed about internet, intranet, webs, browsers, www, what are the usage of all those things. So in this particular class or in this particular session, we discussed about web servers. That means what is the functionality of a web server, how basically the web server does, and how basically web servers working principles. We look into all those things in this particular session. Okay, so first and foremost thing, what is a web server? Okay, what is a web server is? So what are the functionalities of web server? See, web server is the one where web content is stored. Okay, web server is nothing but how basically the contents have been stored. The web contents, I say content, if I say there may be so many contents, but in this particular manner, it's a web content is stored. Basically, web server is used to host the websites, but there exist other websites also. Might be something called as we do a gaming, we play a gaming file transfer protocol, either might be a storage, okay, email activities, all those things we called as a web server. Each and every things we have a different kinds of a web servers. Okay, web server, as we say, the name itself, it says that it is used to store web contents. Okay, it is used to store basically the web contents. So website, I can say it is a collection of web pages, while web server is a software that responds to each request from the web resources. That means which responds to the request from the client for web resources. So that is the meaning of there is how do we request for the resources on the internet to get handled, and is a request what we are requesting has been located anywhere. It might be in a globally, it might be located anywhere, it might be next to your office, we don't know, but globally anywhere else whatever your people are requesting, it might be stored. So that is the meaning with respect to the web servers. So as I already told you, it is a specialized software that responds to the client request by providing web pages, documents, gaming, etc. There might be so many applications related to this. So web server is basically based on a client server model. What is the meaning is nothing but whenever, if you open up a web browser, as I discussed in the few sessions back, either might be a Google, or it might be a Mozilla, or whatever might be the web browsers we have available in the market. We can go through that. If I, on the top where we can enter the address in URL, that is nothing but where we are requesting a document from a web server. That means suppose if I write www.google.com, that means I'm requesting a google.com page to reply back where through from web server. That is where the web server which stores the web content. So URL will map the file on the server and returns the request back to the client. Here, client and server is nothing but the client who is the one sitting at a particular place and requesting a particular resource through the web browser. Server is the one which responds back. Server in Maratha, it responds back. What is the request you people are? If it able to get the reply back, then it is fine, well and good. If it is doesn't able to find a server, then it reply back with an error message saying that whatever you people are requesting, the requesting resource is not available in any particular web server which has been around the globe. So each and every request is communicated using HTTP, that is Hypertext Transfer Protocol. That is a protocol which we are using for requesting any web contents over the internet from the web server. Okay, this is the architecture which we are looking into the thing. This is a client machine. So whatever we have over here, it is a client machine, and this is a server machine. So the server machine is, I say, it's a web server machine where we can send a request and we can send a response. Like this web server, there might be billions of web servers around the globe which will respond to the particular request. For an example, if I say this web server is the one which is situated in India, which responds to the Google server. So that means this server will reply back what are the Google contents which you're requesting. This is the server which is going to handle all the requests. The client is the one who is sitting over here with a web browser, is having an operating system with an abstract layer. So he's using a web server. So he's using a web browser. So he's having a user interface. That is a user interface, nothing but your web server. So web browser, a browser, you're going to use a browser and you're going to request in the particular format. Okay, that particular format is sent through your network interface card, that is your internet, and it will send to our IPS, that is internet ISP, internet service provider. From the service provider, it looks for the web server related to the client request. If there is a one particular server which can able to respond back, so this particular web server will going to respond back to your internet service provider, then to your network interface. Then the response has been analyzed and the response rendered, and it is sent back to the user interface. Then again it sends back to the client monitor, that is your output device. That is nothing but your web browser. This is how basically the web browser works. For an example, www.google.com has been request is sent to an URL, that is through a user interface of your browser, that is formatted through an HTTP request protocol. Then it is sent to the network interface. This goes to the web server. Web server could able to find your request format and it sends a response back to the response formatter. Then the network interface will receive this response. Then it sends to the response analyzer. Analyzer will format into a certain parameters through the protocol. Then it is sent to the user interface, that is to your browser. The browser can able to view your request. So that is how the web server works. So this is a system architecture. What does a client tier looks for? Client architecture, as I said, client and server architecture. In that client and server architecture is the client tier. We have different tiers. In that, the client refers to as a top tier, which contains an application user interface. User interface interact with an application through the user interface, interacts with the middle layer to make a request and retrieve the data from the information tier and displays it. This is what basically it's a client part. Client part is referred as a top tier. It contains an application user interface and user interact with an application through the user interface. That means there's a web browser. That web browser is going to interact with the middle tier and make a request to the web browser. Once a web browser sends back, web server when sends back a response, that is a retrieve the data information tier and displays to the user. That is what the client part is doing. Client part ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನು ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನೀವೇನು ರಿಕ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ ಕಳಿಸ್ತೀರಾ ವೆಬ್ ಬ್ರೌಸರ್ ಮುಖಾಂತರ ನೀವು ಕಳಿಸಿದನ್ನ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರೋಟೋಕಾಲ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡು it sends to the middle tier ಜೊತೆ ರಿಕ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. ಆಮೇಲೆ it sends to the ವೆಬ್ ಸರ್ವರ್ ಕಳಿಸುತ್ತೆ. ವೆಬ್ ಸರ್ವರ್ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಏನು ರಿಕ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ ರಿಕ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ರೆಸ್ಪಾನ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. ಆ ರೆಸ್ಪಾನ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಶನ್ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ವಾಪಸ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ to the information tier will make it in a certain format and displays back to a user. Information tier ಏನು ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ refers to as data tier or at the bottom tier. Okay, maintains the data for the application and stores the data in the relation database management and it stores back and give back to the details to the client tier. Okay, middle tier is the one which is a business logic and the presentation logic. So it implements the business logic and the presentation logic, controls the interaction between application client and application data, act as intermediate data between the information tier and application tier. Application tier ನೀವು ಏನೋ ರಿಕ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ ಕಳಿಸಿರ್ತೀರ, ಅಪ್ಲಿಕೇಶನ್ ಟೈರ್ ಇಂದ ಏನೋ ರಿಕ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ ಕಳಿಸಿರ್ತೀರ ವೆಬ್ ಸರ್ವರ್ಗೆ. ಆ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಶನ್ ನಾನು ವೆಬ್ ಸರ್ವರ್ ಕಳಿಸೋ ಇದನ್ನು ಕೂಡ ಮಿಡಲ್ ಟೈರ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. ಅಂಡ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ಅಪ್ಲಿಕೇಶನ್ ಸರ್ವರ್ ವೆಬ್ ಸರ್ವರ್ ಇಂದ ಬರೋ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಶನ್ ತಗೊಂಡು ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಶನ್ ಅಪ್ಲಿಕೇಶನ್ಗೆ ಮತ್ತೆ ಕಳ್ಸೋಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರ it acts as a middle tier. That's business logic and a presentation logic. Now ಕಳಿಸ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ we use a certain formats. Okay, we use a certain format is nothing but HTTP request type. So HTTP request type is nothing but we use the get method and post method. So we have two methods. One is a get method and a post method. What is a get method? So it's a gets method sends form content as a part of a URL and retrieve the appropriate resource from the web server. Okay, maximum limit ಆಗಿರೋದು 1024 characters. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನೀವೇನ್ ಕಂಟೆಂಟ್ ಕಳಿಸ್ತಿದ್ದೀರಾ ಅದನ್ನ ಗೆಟ್ ಮುಖಾಂತರ ಪಾರ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಎ URL ಕಳಿಸಿ URL ಮುಖಾಂತರನೇ ಅಪ್ರೋಪ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ವೆಬ್ ಸರ್ವರ್ ನ ಫೈಂಡ್ ಔಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಇಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ರಿಟ್ರೀವ್ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್. ಸೊ ಕ್ವೈರಿ ನೀವು ಕಳಿಸ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ 1024 ಕ್ಯಾರೆಕ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ಮಾತ್ರ ಕಳ್ಸಕ್ಕಾಗದು, ಅದಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಕಳ್ಸಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ post request updates the contents of web server, posting a new message to the forum. There is no limit for the length of the query. And also ನೀವೇನ್ ರಿಕ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ ಕಳಿಸ್ತೀರಾ ಅದನ್ನ ಬಾಡಿ ಮುಖಾಂತರ ಕಳಿಸ್ತೇವೆ ಹೊರತು URL ಮುಖಾಂತರ ಕಳಿಸಲ್ಲ. Post method contains a body method. Inside that body method we sends what are the request is there to a body part and sends to the web server. It cannot be seen by the user, but when it's a get method we can see in the web browser URL that this is a request you are sending. ನೋಡ್ಬೋದು. ಫಾರ್ ಅನ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ನೀವು ಗೂಗಲ್ ಸರ್ಚ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ನೀವೇನ್ ಸರ್ಚ್ ಮಾಡಿರ್ತೀರಾ ಆ ಕ್ವೆರಿ ಮೇಲ್ಗಡೆ URL ತೋರಿಸ್ತಾ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ಪ್ಲಸ್ ಸೊ ಅಂಡ್ ಸೊ ಅನ್ಕೊಂಡು ಕನ್ಕ್ಯಾಟನೇಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿ. ಓಕೆ, ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಹೌ ಬೇಸಿಕಲಿ ಕ್ಲೈಂಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಟು HTTP ರಿಕ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್. ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ವೆಬ್ ಬ್ರೌಸರ್ ಇದೆ, ಕ್ಲೈಂಟ್ ವೆಬ್ ಬ್ರೌಸರ್ ಮುಖಾಂತರ ವೆಬ್ ಸರ್ವರ್ ಕಳಿಸ್ತಾನೆ ಥ್ರೂ HTTP ರಿಕ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್. ದೆನ್ ದ ರಿಸೋರ್ಸ್ ಡೇಟಾಬೇಸ್ ಅಪ್ಲಿಕೇಶನ್ ಚೆಕ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಸರ್ವರ್ ರೆಸ್ಪಾನ್ಸ್ ಥ್ರೂ HTTP response. This is an HTTP response. Okay, must we know which particular web server is reserved. Remote web servers accessed using ಇದೆ. For an example, either ನಿಮಗೆ URL ಗೊತ್ತಿರಬೇಕು ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ IP address ಗೊತ್ತಿರಬೇಕು. Okay, so either I can use it through a web browser, that is web address, or with an IP address. Local web servers on the same machine can be accessed using a localhost 127.0.0.1. Okay, leading web servers ಯಾವ್ಯಾವ್ದು ಇದೆ ಅಂತ ಅಂದ್ರೆ IIS Internet Information Service. ಸೊ ಮೈಕ್ರೋಸಾಫ್ಟ್ ಪ್ರೊವೈಡ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ನೀವು ಸಪೋಸ್ ನಿಮ್ಮಲ್ಲೇ ಏನಾದ್ರು ಒಂದು ಸರ್ವರ್ನ ಡೆವಲಪ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಯೂಸ್ ದೀಸ್ ಕೈಂಡ್ ಆಫ್ ಎ ಸರ್ವರ್ಸ್. ನೀವೇ ಒಂದು ಸರ್ವರ್ನ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ರಿಕ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ ಬಂದಿದ್ರೆ ನೀವೇ ರೆಸ್ಪಾನ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡೋಂಗೆ ನೀವು ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬಹುದು. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಅಂತ ಡಿಫ್ರೆಂಟ್ ವೆಬ್ ಸರ್ವರ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ. ಒಂದು IIS ವಿಂಡೋಸ್ ಜೊತೆನೆ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಯೂಸ್ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಅ ಪಾರ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಅನ್ Windows operating system. It supports ASP, that is Active Server Page, Apache, Netscape. These are all the freewares which can be available freely. Okay, it's compatible to Unix and Windows OS for Netscape. Most use web server. Usually most of the user servers are using Apache. So Domino, IBM are used ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. One web server, Sun Microsystems, Samba is a freeware, Zeus is a freeware. So Zeus is costing, okay. Domino and IBM are also costing. It is not a free software. Samba is a free software. These are the references which I have gone through the things. ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಏನಾದರೂ ಡೌಟ್ಸ್ ಇದ್ರೆ ನೀವು ಈ ಲಿಂಕ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹಾಕಿ, ಯೂಟ್ಯೂಬ್ ಲಿಂಕ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ, so that I can reply back you people doubts. So these are the things which I was trying to discuss in front of you people. Thank you.